let's take a look at classifying elements and compounds a little further. Let me maximize this. Here we go. Okay, we have our pure substances. Remember, we had pure substances and mixtures. So we're not looking at mixtures of things. We're looking at a pure substance that can't be broken down any further. Okay, so let's go to the left first. Here's elements. Your elements, that's on your periodic table of elements, okay? If it's found on the periodic table, it's an element. You can have an atomic element, meaning it's made up of one atom. You see neon, there's only one neon, versus an element that's molecular is made up of one or more of the same atom. So for example, O2. Do you see there's two oxygens there? Okay, but they're both oxygen. Okay, there's not a mixture of different elements. It's just one element, but there's more than one. Okay? Compounds over here, though, you can have molecular, meaning they're made up of non-metals. Okay, remember that from chapter 2, a non-metal, so on the right side of the periodic table. Okay, so it's a mixture of some sort of molecule. But look at this molecular versus this molecular. This one is only made up of one type of atom. This one's made up of two or more types of atoms. So there's a mixture of atoms there. And then compounds, you could also have ionic, which means you're going to have a metal with a non-metal. Okay, so the left side of the periodic table with the right side of the periodic table. And that's ionic. So let's look at some examples here. No, let me fall. Molecular. Page 90 on your book, of course you might have a different version of the book, but around page 90 we'll say, it goes over the diatomics or polyatomics. Those are the molecular ones. This is whenever you have more than one. Do you see that you have, it's H2, but still hydrogen, there's just two of them, so that's a molecular element. Chlorine, molecular element. P4, there's four, but they're all phosphorus. So here it is, if you can't find that page, here it is. Hydrogen is a diatomic. You see this kind of, I don't know, kind of like a 7 right here. So nitrogen to iodine, those are all diatomics. And then here are your polyatomics, they exist as more than 2. And all the rest here, these kind of, I know what color you would call this, tan. These are, they exist as one compound, so it's not like H2, O2, or N2 or anything like that. They're just like carbon. Okay, and then we looked over compounds, so you have molecular and ionic. And in the next lecture, we'll actually go over how to name ionic compounds. Okay, so let's do some examples. I should have already had this pulled up, but of course I don't. So as this is pulling up, what we want to do is classify this as either, here it goes, elemental, molecular, okay, elemental, compound molecular, compound ionic, or elemental atomic. Okay, so let's look at these. Okay, so our first one I want to do, make sure I have a decent color. Okay. Let's do H2. Okay, let's analyze this. It's only made up of hydrogen, so there's not a mixture of different types of atoms. So we know this is at least elemental. So, elemental. Now, is it atomic or is it molecular? Well, since there's more than one hydrogen, it's not just H, it's going to be molecular. I should have put mole. What about CH4. Okay, first let's see, is it going to be elemental or a compound? Okay, we see there's a mixture of different elements. It's not just one element there, one type. There's a mixture, so this will be a compound. Now, is this molecular or ionic? So are these nonmetals, or is it a metal and a nonmetal? So if we look on the periodic table, these are all nonmetals. Hydrogen is sort of one of those exceptions. Think about hydrogen. Hydrogen is a gas. It's not a metal. So just kind of think about that sort of intuitive kind of way. Even though it's on the left side of the periodic table, it's not a metal. So this is a compound molecular. What about MgCl2? So first, is it a compound or is this an element? Since we have a mixture there, it's a compound. Okay, now we're going to see, is it molecular or is it ionic? Look, magnesium is on the left side of the periodic table, so it's a metal, and this is on the right side of the periodic table, so it's a nonmetal, so this would be a compound ionic. Okay, now let's do our last one, nickel. There's only one atom there, so we know this is elemental. Okay, now is there more than one atom or just one atom total? Just one. So this would be elemental atomic, meaning only one atom. I hope that helps you classify them. And again, in the next lecture, we're going to go, how do we name some of these compounds here?